Your contractor has indicated that your building is complete and hands over the keys. How do you know that your building is really done, and what happens if defects appear after? What I'm describing is a common occurrence during the completion phase of a building. How to properly close a project can be found in any standard form building contract, which are highly recommended. These contracts generally outline the agreed project costs, scope, and duration between the employer and builder, as well as provide methods and solutions for handling various conditions and elements of the contract. Building contracts are also managed by a contract administrator, who is given specific responsibilities throughout the duration of the contract. In Jamaica, the most commonly used contract is the CIC standard form of building contract. Clause 15 of the contract, titled Practical Completion and Defects Liability, describes the process for the handing over of a completed project. It states what practical completion is, when it occurs, who determines it, and how defects should be handled. Subclause 1 reads, Practical completion is when, in the opinion of the contract administrator, the work is completed sufficiently to enable the employer to utilize the works for the purpose for which it was designed. According to this, the contract administrator is the one who determines whether or not the project is complete, and who in most cases is either the project manager, engineer, or architect of the project. Additionally, subclause 2 goes on to state that if the work is less than 95% completed, the employer can request that the contract administrator issue a certificate of practical completion for the entire building or sectional completion certificate in the case of a section of the building. This means practical completion can occur at any stage depending on the employer's needs. For example, a contractor is engaged to build a 4-unit commercial block. After completing 2 of the units, the employer can make a request for the 2 completed to be handed over and the remaining 2 handed over at a later date. For the purpose of the contract, practical completion is agreed to have taken place on the day named in the certificate. This date is important because practical completion initiates 2 things. First, it starts the defects liability period. This is a period following practical completion, usually 6 or 12 months, during which a building contractor retains liability for dealing with any defects that manifest themselves. Subclause 3 explains that any defects or faults which appear within the defects liability period due to materials or workmanship not in accordance with the contract must be specified by the contract administrator in a schedule of defects and delivered to the contractor. Within a reasonable time after the receipt of such schedule, these defects must be made good by the contractor entirely at their own cost. When the defects are corrected, the contract administrator will issue a certificate to that effect. This may seem unfair to the contractor. However, this liability incentivizes the contractor to limit defects caused by poor workmanship. The second thing practical completion initiates is for the contractor to get paid. Under these contracts, the employer is able to retain a portion of the payment owed to a contractor. This is known as a retention fund and can be used by the employer to pay for possible future losses due to poor workmanship. Both the practical completion certificate and the making good on the defects or final certificate releases parts of the funds retained. This further incentivizes the contractor to make good on any defects or faults listed. Alternatively, according to subclause 6, instead of requiring the contractor to make good on defects, the contract administrator may give an instruction that a defect not be remedied and instead there be a reduction in the contract sum or amount owed. For example, it was determined that the windows were improperly installed. The contract administrator, after assessing the cost to properly repair the windows, may deduct that amount from the funds retained or owed and contract someone else to make the repair. Having in place a contract which holds the contractor liable for incomplete or defective work provides the best outcome when closing your project. If you have any questions on practical completion or defects liability, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.